Now this corner, as we talked about, is very, very crucial to be super smooth with. Bending the car in, getting a nice kind of, it is an apex where you can be just even keels and square, but it's also maybe a couple feet later, but also just throttle management, how you roll off the throttle for this initial part of two.
We talk about managing weight transfer, right? And this is a prime example. You got a little bit of camber here, very little, through turn 2, the apex of turn 2, but then the thing drops off the track drops off quite a bit for turn 3. Different horsepower cars, again, the entry speed's always going to be different, right? You know, a small sports car with a lot of downforce, you can really carry the throttle in through the apex of turn 2, but you always have to be smooth with the brake application and the throttle release.
And this is where, you know, you kind of see a little bit of a difference in advanced professionals versus drivers who are learning. It's a very good place at Atlanta Motorsports Park, besides being difficult, to teach you patience and really focus on that weight management that you just touched on in regards to controlling that weight management, not only with your pedals, your throttle and brake, but also with your steering. You know, here isn't a place where I'm looking at 3 where I'm like, man, I gotta attack that brake pedal. You know, I like to bend it in here. I really like to feel the weight transfer smoothly. And now that starts with also you're rolling off the throttle instead of just dumping off the throttle. And then getting down here, when you're looking more at 3, in between this, you know, you have to kind of set your hands and be finesse them a lot. But also, with that being said, you're not stabbing the brake like you just did in 1. You're not hitting the brake super hard initially. You're kind of trailing into the brake to control that weight, because the corner is a long corner, but it's also pretty high speed, so you don't want to do anything abrupt to really upset that weight distribution.
You know, we talk all the time about vision. Obviously, we saw that on the entry over there in turn 2 for turn 3. But now it's easy to get sucked into just looking at turn 3, but you need to be looking past, you know, to the right for the entry of turn 4. The way you balance the car, the braking application, the throttle release, light long brake versus threshold like we used in turn 1.
Correct. And then you start to look at it, and a lot of it is just being able to be really consistent and having a timing for everything. Because right here, if you get on the brakes too early, you hold the throttle a little too long, it kind of separates, and something that we can really work with new drivers on, teaching them patience as well. Because you're looking at this long corner and you want to get in here and go as fast as you can, obviously, because we all like to go fast if we're at a racetrack and race cars, right? But really, you got to look at how you can control the average speed through here, the most important part, all the way up to the apex 4.
You know, the way the car sets on turn in, the way the brake application, light and long, you're not putting a lot of pitch change into the car. So the tires can do more of their job just cornering and make more grip by keeping the car nice and level.
Now we're looking up with this right-hander. We really want to be smooth with how we're turning, and this is where we're kind of trailing off the brake. But also you're kind of driving into a little bit of camber on the exit.
Absolutely. I mean, if the track's falling away from you, your vision needs to be up there for turn 4 already. That's how far ahead you look. And I use the curbs here. I don't use the high curbs. I use the first section of curb over here on the right, just like I did in turn 2 on the entry there as well.
Yeah, just nice and smooth, and then now you're kind of looking up the hill. I see a lot of people try to hustle the car really over right. I think there's a balance in between that, of where you just kind of make sure this apex is nice and late. Kind of get you a nice straight run up to that apex and bull.
I mean, vehicle dynamics, managing weight transfer. When it's a big, heavy car that doesn't have a lot of grip, but there's a lot of cars have nowadays, a lot of horsepower, you can't move the weight back and forth so quickly. So the more you build the weight up on the right side of the car, entering turn 2, the way it transfers over to the left side of the car for turn 3 has a lot to do with the way you set up for turn 4. So you just can't be aggressive with the wheel. It's all smooth inputs. And ultimately, you know, your first apex is right up here. So the first apex right over here. You know, the entry here, you're accelerating between turns 3 and 4. You know, you've done the braking, you've taken the speed out of the car, you've done your downshift. Now you can accelerate a little bit more before the entrance to turn 4. But you have this hill, so the brake application here is going to be really light.
Yeah, you're just barely basically, you're just making sure you don't get too hot coming up over the ledge up here. But basically you're just doing I call it a speed adjustment rather than a brake zone. Speed adjustment with a brush of the brake, kind of get the car slowed down, and then my eyes are kind of transferring to go up towards the center line that you're actually standing on. That's where I like to put my left front. Feel like when I get up to the top there on the right line, I get my left front hooked there, I can actually hold the same angle on the wheel all the way around the corner.
Yeah, just one wheel input. You set it and forget it all the way through turn 4. You see people like what you talked about earlier trying to adjust the angle of the car from the exit of 3 to the entry of 4. In reality, in the real world, you just can't do it. You know, it's too much weight to move. So having the proper setup, just enough brake pressure to set the front end, you know, give it a little bit of front grip, because you're going to lose that grip as you crest over here.
Exactly. I like to just put my left front right here on this crest and be able to kind of hold that. And what's interesting about it is it seems like every single time, no matter what kind of car I'm in, big touring car, small prototype, I can set my hands once and it takes me all the way to the apex.
Absolutely, and you see a lot of line variations here from other drivers, but again, technical corner, a long carousel type corner with camber changes. Obviously you lose it over here on the entry. It's pretty flat over here towards the middle. The car's going to be out towards the middle. I don't like to try to hug the white line the whole way through, because I find that I have to add more input towards the exit, which is just scrubbing speed. So double apex corner, you're out towards the middle of the track in the middle.
Even though it's a mid-speed corner, I would call it. It's all about the momentum. You know, like I said, or like you just said, getting really into that apex tightens up your wheel and then makes the car understeer a little bit, which then creates a slower rolling speed. And we want to just kind of keep the momentum up and focus on getting full throttle as early as possible to get that run down into 6.
It's all about being smooth with the throttle, right? So the throttle application, you're literally balancing the car with your right foot on the gas and the amount of scrub on the right front. Yeah, it's a little bit of a tendency to understeer, obviously just through the elevation change alone. But as you get towards the middle and the exit of turn 4, you start gaining some grip, looking for the second apex.
Exactly. And it's one of those things that it's just really, we always talk about vision, but it's just wrapping your eyes around, down to that apex. The problem is if you get to throttle a little bit too early on the top and you really start to chase it and you have a nose sensitive car and you get out here, you start to kind of get a little bit of oversteer because you're kind of in the marbles. Not a lot of people run out here if you get your right sides out. If you just get greedy in the center, so it's real crucial that you kind of have a little bit of patience and balance of that throttle and balance of your eyes, and kind of make sure your lines or your eyes line up with that straightaway before you get to full throttle.
Exactly what you said. I mean, another beauty of Atlanta Motorsports Park technical corners, certainly we've been to carousel corners all around the world, right? This is an excellent example of how to do the proper technique, the proper line, but a double apex versus a single apex, and what that affords you to do with car angle, throttle.
And speed.
Absolutely, I love speed. I love speed.